Hello everyone, today I'm going to present to you a game played by Lasker. This is an amazing game. It shows you how you can keep threats on your opponents in order to reach a checkmate at the end. Before we start, here we have a simple puzzle. It's black to play. How can you checkmate white in 2 moves? Think about it and write down your comments below. Now, on the game, here we have Borges. This game was played in 1896. Borges in white, Lasker in black. White started with a4, e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and here we have the Ray Lopez, bishop to b5. Now, Lasker continued with knight, continued his development, knight to f3, threatening the pawn. In this position, white castled and black accepted the sacrifice. Of course, Lasker's point of view from this game, he says that from this move taking the pawn, he said that if white offers you a sacrifice, especially if it was a key pawn in the middle game, then you should accept it. Black played pawn d4, of course trying to open the position. Black played bishop to e7, preparing to castle. He didn't mind taking the pawn. In this position, white played queen to e2, of course putting more pressure on the knight. Want to move out of the way. Knight to d6, and then black took with the bishop, the knight on e6, and he took with the pawn on e6. Now taking the pawn, forcing the knight to move, and after he moved to b7, of course he moving the knight away, then doing the fianchetto, of course playing bishop to knight to pawn to b3, preparing for the fianchetto. Of course this is not the best move. It's supposed to develop the knight. This is the best move because this fianchetto will not do you any good. Now castled kingside, and just now preparing to develop the black bishop, played to b2, and now playing pawn on d6. Of course white took en passant, and just now for black's advantage he just got rid of the double pawns. He took with the pawn, and now knight to d2, and putting the black rook on e8 along with the queen's diagonal, of course. In this position, prepared with the rook on e1, developing the bishop and protecting the rook at the same time, of course. Now in this position, knight to e4, and now we have d5. Now white played knight to d6. Of course you can't play the knight on c3, of course not the best continuation, because otherwise you have bishop to b6, opening this file and threatening to take the knight. This is not the best continuation. And you can't also take the knight to g3. We have the same scenario, bishop to a3, threatening to take. Here we have the open file and taking the bishop, and you can do nothing about it because otherwise the bishop is gone. So the best continuation was knight, putting the knight back on d2, and just right now playing bishop on a3. The best continuation to protect your bishop is blocking with the black bishop, of course, because if you're going to move the queen, then it's gone, the bishop is gone. And now threatening to take, of course. Now we have just in this position, black started the heavy blows. Just every move counts for black. Every move that is a threat, and white's just moving out of the way. dodging the bullets. In this position, black played queen to a6, of course, threatening to take the bishop and the knight, and if you take, then we are equal with material. Take, and of course it's better for white to take the bishop and not the knight, because if you take the knight, then we have pushing the pawn on e4, and if you move out of the way trying to take the bishop, then he's going to play bishop to b2, moving the rook out of the way. Then we have bishop to f3, and this knight is gone. There's no safe place for this knight. In this position it's taken, and here your knight is gone. Definitely you have nothing to do about it. So it was better for white to take the bishop, not the knight, and just now push the pawn. Here we have another blow, moving out of the way, of course, and queen to f3, threatening to take the knight with no protection. Now protected with the pawn on c3. Here we have rook on f8, threatening this pawn, and here white pushed. You can see it's a threat after a threat. And in this position here we have queen on g5, threatening to take the knight on d2, and this is another threat, protecting the knight in this position. And now we have knight on c5. Of course this is another threat, moving to this square and forking the queen and the rook, and just what cannot afford it. He moved the knight to f1, of course, threatening to take the queen in this position, and black moved his queen to g6, still eliminating the threat of taking the queen. And yet so here we have the threat remains, knight on d3. Black played rook to e3, eliminating the threat, moving out of the way. Here we have this perfect outpost, threatening the queen, and now d1. In this position here we have the threatening of a checkmate, knight to f4, with a threat to take and checkmate. Even you have here in this position check, and you can't move out of the way, and forking the king with the queen. Now of course blocking the queen's way. In this position black played an amazing move, which is pawn on h5. He wants to move the queen out of the way, the knight out of the way, sorry, and protecting the knight, of course, played knight on e2. In this position black sacrificed the knight with knight on g2. He wants to get the king out of his protection and let him move in the, of course, in the empty spaces. And now the king accepted this sacrifice, and another one. Here we have pawn takes with a check, took with the rook, and here sacrificed also the bishop. What an amazing sacrifices. He wants to move the king into the empty spaces, and now the king take the bishop with a check, moving out of the way. And here we have a check, taking the rook, two rooks with the rook and two knights. Black moved out of the way with g1, now pushing the pawn. The only way to play in this position is knight to h1, protecting the square. Here we have check, and in this position white resigned. Of course there is no way to go. If you go to g2, we have this amazing checkmate with the pawn. This is a checkmate, and white is gone. Here Lasker demonstrated a game that he keeps threats to his opponent, and just didn't relax with any move for white. There's no relaxation. What an amazing game. Please, if you like the video, please just push the like button, follow the channel for more games, and thank you very much.